Hi, I'm Dr. Gerald Deas. Welcome to Health Center from Downstate Medical Center. Today we're going to go into a subject that you heard a lot on the air recently. You've seen it in newspapers. Health centers are talking about it now, putting up all kind of posters. Do you have diabetes? Or do you have, like some folks say, a high sugar, and so forth? But there's a lot to this whole question. It hasn't all been solved even yet. But it's being solved by doing certain things with the public. You know, to get information out to the public about taking care of your health is very difficult, and it has to be done in a way that it doesn't frighten you. Because we don't want to frighten anybody. We just want to know how you can live longer and healthier and enjoy life like I'm enjoying it for so many years right now. I don't have diabetes, but I'm getting old. But the thing is that what made me not get diabetes and somebody in my family to get diabetes. So we're going to discuss these things this morning and how it might be treated and new thoughts on treatment and things like this. And so we have our head of diabetes here at Downstate Medical Center, Dr. Banerjee. Dr. Banerjee, so nice having you with us today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You know, Dr. Banerjee, years ago, I spoke to you in the hall, and I said, have you heard of people having diabetes and all of a sudden they didn't have it? And you said, oh yeah, well I had that in my mind a long time, and we call it flatbush diabetes because of the population of people in downstate area, being African American, Caribbean and so forth. You've seen that where maybe insulin disappears, but before we even get into that, maybe you can just give us a round view so the audience can understand how you're really detecting diabetes today.
So as you know, Brooklyn has a lot of people with diabetes.
Right.
There are almost 250,000 people with diabetes in Brooklyn, wow, and perhaps a greater percentage in central Brooklyn. And this is National Diabetes Month, November.
Yes.
And we're hoping to make an impact and raise awareness about diabetes.
Right.
And ask the question, why do we have so much diabetes?
Yes.
And of course, it's a very complicated question.
Right. But what
some
would
of
you
it
say
is genetic.
Okay.
And some of it is environmental. Now,
When
we
you say
can't do
genetic,
anything.
when you say genetic, what do you mean by that?
That's you inherited from your parents.
Okay. All
We
right.
can't do anything about our parents, but we
right.
can do something about the second part, which is environmental.
Okay.
And what I think of as going into that equation, the biggest thing that you can do something about is your diet.
Okay. And when you speak about diet, is there any particular foods you leave out or put in, or vitamins or minerals or things like this?
Well, vitamins and minerals are very important.
Okay.
I'd say you know much more about it than I do.
Oh, go ahead.
But I think that on a simpler level, what you eat every day contributes the most to your blood sugar.
Right.
And your carbohydrates contribute the most to your blood sugar. So if you can control your carbohydrates a little bit, that's the starchy food,
Right.
the potatoes, the yams, the plantains,
Right.
you'd be better off.
Well, you know, sometime when a person has diabetes even, they might want a piece of watermelon or a piece of cantaloupe, or they want a whole potato rather than a baked potato. Is there any difference in the absorption of sugar from these things according to what you eat? How much sugar is in that thing? You might think it's not sugar, but it's sweet. It has sugar in it.
It's sweet, and that's why we like it.
That's right. Sure.
And all those things raise your sugar. Some perhaps a little faster than others, but in general, cantaloupes, you eat a lot of that in the summer, it certainly raises your sugar.
Right, right. But how about other ethnic foods that the people say in our area?
Such as yams, potatoes,
Yes.
all of those.
How about candy yams?
Candied yams in particular, because it's a double dose.
Yes, right.
And they definitely raise your sugar. And
Right.
the issue is, yes, you'd like to eat them, but eat them in moderation in small portions.
Right.
And mixed in with other green leafy vegetables.
When you say green leafy vegetables, people, you know, around in our areas, they do have their ethnic greens like kale and collard greens and things like this. Do you have any list that you have in mind of, say, some vegetables that you should be considered in your diet?
Things that you should consider, well, I think kale, collard greens are one thing. String beans are another.
Right.
Some vegetables which are starchy, like squashes, should be had in the smaller proportions. But anything that's green, anything that's leafy, anything that you like.
Right. Because you really have to give people things that they can buy in the community most of the time,
Right.
I imagine. You know, I see a lot of times our grocery stores are not the same as Whole Foods, for example, who has a lot of things in their places where you might not see in another market, type of market thing and so forth. Speaking of diabetes, though, could you give us a little stats, a little statistics, since we mentioned that word? Who is in that statistics? Male, female, children, or whatever?
So men and women often get an equivalent amount of diabetes. Children are getting the adult form of diabetes, largely because children are becoming much more overweight and obese and sedentary at a much earlier age. And these children are now going on to develop, having many years of diabetes by the time they reach early adulthood. And they're at very high risk for complications. So the longer you've had high blood sugars, the more likely you are to have complications. And as you know, these complications are in your eyes, so you have difficulty seeing, blindness. They affect your nerves, so you might have numbness or tingling in your feet. That may lead to amputations because you don't feel the fact that you stepped on a nail. And develop a sore. And the blood supply is not so good. And so you eventually may have an amputation. But in addition, you have kidney trouble. And there are a lot of people here in this community on dialysis, and that's completely preventable.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so one of the things that you can do to say prevent it is to keep your blood sugars low. And one major way is diet, as we mentioned. Another way is taking the right kind of medication at the right time.
I see.
Because one of the things that we've learned recently is that the organ that keeps your blood sugar normal is your pancreas. And the pancreas makes insulin. And the pancreas doesn't like living in an environment of very high sugar. So the pancreas is inside your body and it's bathed in the blood, and the blood has the sugar. If there's a lot of sugar, it's toxic to the cells that make insulin. So if you keep your sugar low, you're more likely to keep your cells that make insulin, your beta cells, doing much better for a much longer time. And you can preserve your cells. And preserve your blood sugar, and therefore preserve all your organs.
Well, that's interesting. So therefore there's a pill that can do that kind of thing.
And there are pills and medicines that do this. And one of the things that we're focusing on now is the earlier treatment of diabetes. So we might treat diabetes earlier with insulin, whereas in the old days we waited till it was really far gone. So people shouldn't be afraid of insulin. Or the pills when they're used early. Because, you know, people like to say, I'm healthier if I take lesser numbers of pills. But you might be healthier if you take the right number of pills for you and individualize it and keep your blood sugars low so you can preserve your own pancreatic beta cells.
Well, there's one thing that when you talked about obesity, but now we're talking about fat. How does fat itself interfere with insulin?
Fat does interfere with insulin. You might ask, how does it do that? It does it because it means that your body will need more insulin to do the same job. It makes it very inefficient in terms of using insulin. And so if you're unable to make a lot of insulin, or if you increase the demand for insulin with a lot of starchy food, then you won't be able to handle it. And the fat causes you to be very inefficient in that process.
Well, in studying this all now, I understand you have a large study that's coming about, and they're going to have folks to come in, maybe downstate here, and be looked at to see whether we can maybe preserve those cells that produce the insulin by using certain diet or nutrients or medications and things like this. So this is going to be a very important study to preserve those little cells that produce the insulin in the pancreas.
And therefore preserve your, so this study is being done, it's sponsored by the government, the National Institute of Health. And the idea is to see which combination of which medicines are best for different types of people to keep their blood sugars in a normal range or close to normal range. And which ones work the best.
Well, you know, that's so, sometimes we don't individualize diseases. Sometimes we think everybody is the same. Genetics, like we said before, our genetics are different, and we're going to have to use medicines that really will cooperate with the genetics of the person, in a sense. And so having a population of people, in this study, it's going to be children or folks who are aged or folks who already have diabetes.
So the people to include in this are people who already have diabetes. We're not doing it on children. So adults over the age of 30. Who have diabetes for less than 10 years, so relatively early onset, where you already have some of your own beta cells. And the idea is, can we preserve them for a long time so that they can work for you?
Well, that's
And the earlier you start the treatment, the better off you are.
And how long would the study run for?
It runs for 7 years.
7 years. Well, it's worth it when you think you can add 7 years to a person's life.
I think, well, that's absolutely right.
Or make them live past 70, in a sense. So what we're going to do now is, I understand you have a person that is working along with you to have folks to be encouraged to come in and have these things looked at, and so they can live to 70. So I hope
they live longer than 70.
Right. Well, certainly it's nice having you here this morning, and I hope that we can go ahead now and see how this study might touch our community and make it a better, healthy community. So I really want to
thank you very much, Dr. Deas.
Right. So at Downstate here, we have this study that's going to be taking place right here, and headed that service of getting folks to come in and be checked out for their diabetes is a wonderful person here that's been with Downstate for many years, and she has a way of talking to people to make them give up information that other people might not be able to, get frightened with and so forth. So I want to welcome you, Nicole.
Hey, Dr. Deas, good to see you again.
Oh, wonderful having you here. I many months ago, several weeks ago, it got to be months ago, we stopped in the hall and you were telling me you're here now doing a study on diabetes.
Yes.
And medications to treat diabetes, and maybe medication to prevent diabetes, But you have to get the people to come in. And I thought they chose the right person to do that, because you've always been an impression to me, even when you work with the Arthur Ashe organization, that you knew how to talk to people. You're at the botanical gardens looking out at all those beautiful flowers. Now here you are doing another job in getting people to look like flowers, healthy flowers, to find out about their diabetes. A little of your background maybe you could give me.
Well, Dr. Deas, you're too kind. Much of what I've learned on how to talk to people, it was from you. You being a great mentor and a great coach. So, a little bit about my background has always been in the area of public and community affairs.
Okay.
Most of my background has actually been in doing government work.
Right.
And really working with members of the community to have them take charge of the things that were important to them.
Okay.
And so coming here back to Downstate to work on this study was a natural progression of things for me, and what's important to me, and having people take charge of what's important to them. And certainly their health. And their health care is something that's important to them. It's something that they value. Nobody wants to be sick.
That's right.
And if they had the proper, information, support systems in place, they could do a really great job. So this study is really quite phenomenal in that it does provide that type of support and education that people really need. So the study is called GRADE, Diabetes Study. It's being conducted in 30 plus locations around the country.
Okay.
And being funded and supported by the National Institutes of Health.
Right.
It's a 7-year study, one that, to best to my knowledge, has never been done before. But it's really looking for people who have type 2 diabetes that is out of control and could be in control. With adding a second medication. So now,
when you say type 2, what about type 1 now? What is type 1 and type 2?
Sure. Type 1 diabetes is where the body makes no insulin at all.
Okay.
Type 2 is that the body isn't making enough insulin, or the insulin is being resistant, or the body is resisting the insulin that's being made in type 2.
Right.
So as you know, there are a number of people who have type 2 diabetes.
Right.
Some of them know, some of them don't know, and it's just the numbers are growing and growing and growing.
Right.
Also, as you know, people who have type 2 diabetes that's out of control, it's the complications are just too many.
Right.
From your head to your toes.
From your eyes to your toes.
Yes.
You think, because that's sometimes the first time they start feeling a little blurry vision and things like this.
You know, blurry vision. A lot of people experience fatigue, thirst. They have to urinate a lot. So those are some of the symptoms and the signs that maybe something's happening with my glucose level, also known as sugar, being too high.
So in other words, you want to kick the sugar out of it.
Want to shake the sugar, out of it.
Out of it, right.
And through the Gray Diabetes study, that's exactly what we hope to do.
Oh, yeah.
As well as help people to live a sweet life.
There you go.
With their diabetes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You can take sweet. That sweet has 2 E's in it too, doesn't it?
It does. Like 2 eyes.
2 eyes. Because, you know, a lot of times you don't have these symptoms and you're just obese and you feel fine, you know, and so forth. And you say everything is okay. And then you go to the doctor and all of a sudden they find your sugar elevated.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about that, because somebody will say you're a potential diabetic.
Or the other language I like to hear is I'm borderline.
Borderline diabetic. There's no borderline in anything, even immigration. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's another show.
Right.
But borderline diabetes really is diabetes. And you've got to get control of that early on. You know, lifestyle is the big deal. I like to say, you know, your genes.
Right.
Your genes is what loads the gun. Your lifestyle is what pulls the trigger.
Yes, yes.
And we need to spend a lot more time around lifestyle changes, but it's difficult to make those behavior changes, right? From the time we're little, you cry, mother comes over, if you're not wet, I'm going to feed you, right? And so from a very early age, we understand food feels good, it tastes good, it's secure, it provides comfort, and we grow older and it's the same thing. We find comfort and security and safety in food. And so it's difficult to make those changes in the foods that we're eating, especially when we find out we now have this thing called type 2 diabetes.
And when you talk about comfort, that comfort is so important in there, because, you know, a lot of people get depressed and they talk about comfort foods. A chocolate cookie will calm me down.
A brownie.
A brownie, you know, or a cup of coffee or something with a lot of sugar in it and so forth, or that inevitable soda bottle that's picked up, that I see people when they pick it up, they drink about a quart of it, then they put the top back on, in about 5 minutes they
back.
They don't know the sugar's going up, because those things are loaded with sugar.
Yes, they are.
Good, continue then.
And so now that I find that I have this thing called type 2 diabetes, and now I can't eat anything.
Yeah, right. Sure.
You know, so then I go drastic and I can't eat anything. What am I supposed to do? And making drastic changes in your life in terms of the foods that you eat, it's not a sustainable thing. So what we like to say to people in the GRADE study is that small steps lead to big rewards, and that's what we want to teach you.
Oh, that's
the
wonderful.
Small steps that you can take. One of those small steps, make sure you take your medication as prescribed.
There you go, surely.
Take it as prescribed. And if, for some reason, the medication you're on is not doing the trick to control blood sugar, then you may need a secondary medication to take, and that's not a bad thing.
That's right.
Especially if you start taking that secondary medication early on.
Of course.
You do yourself a world of good.
Surely.
And then with those combinations of medicines, plus the small steps that you can take, literally small steps. Exercise, we say, you know what, don't think of it as exercise. Go for a walk.
Yeah, that's it.
Go for a walk to get some fresh air. Do you know if you go and walk 10 minutes 3 times a day, that's your 30 minutes of exercise?
Sure.
That's required.
That's even if you go up and down stairs.
Yes.
To answer the bell.
Yes, exactly.
To say come in and go down and answer the door, you know. I use my exercise in the hospital by wherever I go. I use stairs and long halls, and I know I get my exercise.
Exactly.
Sure. Get
those steps in.
That's right.
But when you break it down for people in bite-sized, manageable things that they can do, a light bulb goes on. They go, oh, okay, I can do that. Because they're now thinking, oh, I've got to go run out and join a gym, which I can't afford.
Right.
You know, it's how am I going to do this? I have to work. How am I going to get this exercise?
That's right.
You want to take a break and get some fresh air for 10 minutes.
That's right. Sure. You're just what you said a few moments ago, bite size.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the oversized, it's the bite size. A bite size being a bite. You know, one time. It doesn't mean chew. You didn't say chew size.
Exactly.
Chew time. And so people think, well, I have to now eliminate all these things I've been doing. Sometimes you don't have to eliminate everything.
No, you don't.
And to make it comfortable, like we're talking about comfort foods and
yeah.
things like this, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen even my youngster grandson take broccoli and eat it like an ice cream cone, a raw broccoli, and eat it. Now, I didn't tell him, his mother didn't say to eat that like an ice cream cone, but he just started eating, and of course it was good to him. Now, I'm not the type who want to eat a raw broccoli stalk like that, like an ice cream cone. So we have to put things in perspective of where they shop at and things like this.
You got to meet people where they are.
That's right. Sure.
And have them, show them the ways that they can use the things that they have right there and still enjoy life. Again, this is about having a sweet life.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you can still have that sweet life.
Right.
It's going to be in smaller, bite-sized amounts of food.
That's right.
But you're still going to enjoy it.
Well, you know, when Dr. Menergy was telling me about the study they were having, and this was several months ago, a lot of these studies, people become so impersonal. You know, doctors wearing white coats and measuring and all these kind of things. That doesn't do anything for the patient. It has to be a person that they can almost melt into to do what they say they should do.
Yeah, and you know, someone who is willing to take a step in those shoes that they are in.
Right.
You know, at the very least, try to take a walk in those moccasins. I'm going to tell you a little experiment actually that I did for myself. After spending time talking to our different study participants who, you know, people don't want to take a whole lot of medication.
That's right.
And I needed to understand what that felt like for myself. So I decided to get some Tic Tacs.
Okay.
And I decided to use the Tic Tacs in the way that the medication is prescribed to be taken.
Oh, yes.
Right? So every week I was going to increase the amount of Tic Tacs.
Oh, yeah. Tic Tac meaning the
little candy.
Candies, yes.
The little candy Tic Tacs, yes. Because I wanted to really understand what makes this so complicated. And I want to say, you know what, after my own little experiment for 3 weeks, I got it. I was like, okay. So I have to remember to do this, plus all the other things that are going on in my life.
That's right.
So I am able to now communicate from a different place.
Oh, sure.
When I hear someone say, this is difficult, I can say, yes, I get that it is.
That's right.
But the complications from not doing this is far more greater.
Well, you know, just below knee amputations is still a major operations due to diabetes.
Yeah.
And when you see a person in their 30s and 40s, even some of our entertainers who have diabetes have difficulty with eyesight, and they're in their prime of their life of doing their orchestrations and all the other things, playing their music and things like this. Diabetes will not allow them to do so.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of our greatest and well-loved entertainers that's no longer with us is Luther Vandross.
Oh, yeah.
Who was diabetic.
Oh, sure. But there's a lot out there. I can't name them right off right now, but so many I've heard have diabetes, and they're still doing their craft, but at the same time, they're late at night. They have to do certain things that they wouldn't normally have to do other than being an entertainer. But I just hope that that this study will really put a whole revolutionary idea into doctors particularly, and nurses or people who are treating diabetes and things like this, how to approach this whole subject matter in a human way rather than I want to keep you alive way. I want to keep you alive longer and healthy. It's no sense being in a wheelchair at 75 when you don't have to be in a wheelchair at 75 due to diabetes. you know, things like this. So I just want to welcome you on board here at Downstate and all the things you're doing, and I'm sure Dr. Banerjee will make discoveries that have not been seen before, at least in treatment of diabetes.
Yeah, again, this study is something that probably won't ever be done again.
Right.
But it's so important to be able to understand, you know, with all the medications that are out there,
right,
which combinations really, truly do the best
That's
in
right.
helping to control blood sugar,
Right.
so that people can live a sweet life.
There, well, listen, that's a nice way to end it all. Sweet life. You folks out there, you might like sweets, but you want a sweet life at the same time. Strawberry shortcake and all those things, and Sundays, whipped cream all sound good, but we want to make sure that you can live long enough to enjoy it a long time. So we'll see you the next time, hopefully with some information that's taking place right here at Downstate Medical Center to show that we can treat diabetes in a humane way, in a way that you will be glad to have that kind of treatment. We'll see you next time.